Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Tales from the Fog. I'm your host, Casey, and with me once again is the amazing and awesome Veronica. How are you doing?
Aw, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Anything new going on in the world of Veronica?
It's such a sad world. Last week I had technically my first stunt audition, because the first one was by video and it was a series of stunts put together. It wasn't really an audition in itself.
Yeah.
So this one was for a company called Action Horizons, and they're responsible for all of the stunt shows and things at Universal Studios. So the Waterworld show, the special effects show, the Raptors. I think they also do the Transformers with the stilt walkers.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% positive, but I think that they're involved in that. Yeah, they got that contract a couple of years ago. So they're responsible for writing the shows, hiring the entertainment, and everything like that. So they have some new shows coming up for 2017, and this was their annual cattle call for new talent. And they were casting for a couple of their shows. And so I went and checked it out. My mentor is a member of that group already. So he said, this is a good idea. Go check them out. Meet some people, see what it's like to go into a stunt audition. So I went and I did my best and I got cut, but I expected to be cut. I wasn't really heartbroken that I got cut because, I'm still really early in this journey, but it was a lot of fun. It was very hard work. It was a series of minute-long, horrible, horrible things that nobody should ever do. And it wasn't that bad. I'm sure it was easy for some, but it was a challenge for me. But it was a lot of fun, and I was very sore the next day, and I had a blast.
It sounds fun.
It was a lot of fun, and it was really motivating to continue to practice and just get better, get stronger. One of the things they had us do is pull-ups, and that was the thing that I'm the worst at.
Me
and anyone
too.
who has seen me in person can understand why. So I got to work on that, on some upper body strength and slendering down the lower half.
Yeah.
Would be ideal. But yeah, that's pretty much the latest and the greatest, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's new with you, Mr. Casey?
Oh, nothing really. Just been working on some music for secret projects.
And secret projects.
And, that's about it for me. Nothing I can talk about yet, unfortunately.
Which is too bad, because every time I've come home from work, you've been in front of your computer with some squiggly line wave file. Not a wave file, but, it looks like a Christmas tree. The lights across the screen. If anyone who's ever done audio editing knows what I'm talking about. But that's on the screen, and Casey's sitting there, and he's working really hard. And I'm like, hey, Casey. And he doesn't say anything. He's like, I'm busy. He's got his headphones on. So he's very hard at work on something that you, the audience, will know about here pretty soon.
Hopefully. We'll be able to talk about it soon.
Hopefully we'll be able to release some little bits. Once things are announced officially, then we'll be able to start dropping some Easter eggs here and there about what's going to happen. But rest assured, it's going to be good.
Yeah, so on this episode, I thought maybe we could do a little bit of a time traveling episode and go back to 2010, because I did a really epic kind of plane hopping trip, I guess you could say. It wasn't a road trip because I took planes, but I flew back to Orlando in 2010 to do Horror Nights. And then from after Horror Nights, I actually flew up to Virginia to do a farm haunt. And then I flew back down to Orlando for a few days and stayed in Tampa and did Busch Gardens Howl-O-Screams and a couple other things in the area, and then flew home. So it was a busy week and a half of a lot of airplane rides.
That sounds like a great week and a half.
Yeah, it was really cool. But today what I want to talk about is Busch Gardens Tampa, their Howl-O-Scream event.
Okay.
So this is back in 2010, but a lot of the stuff they do is the same.
Right.
So it's still kind of pertinent to what they're currently doing. And we can talk about, what it's like to go there. And it's a really awesome event. And the parallels to Knott's Scary Farm are really close, because right up the freeway in Orlando is Halloween Horror Nights, which is exactly the same competition that Knott's has.
Interesting.
So the parallels are really close, and it's really interesting because Busch Gardens kind of takes the same approach as Knott's, and obviously Horror Nights has their Horror Night thing going on.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Horror Nights Orlando on another podcast, because that's going to take a while to talk about.
Good, because I have questions.
Yeah. So back in 2010, the cool thing, and they still do this today, Busch Gardens, Howl-O-Scream, both their Williamsburg and the Tampa, they do this thing which I kind of wish Knott's would do, because it really freshens the event every single year, is they come up with a theme that goes throughout the whole park. So the year that I went was called Revenge Rocks. And the whole backstory is that there's this punk band called My Ex. and she was in a band with her ex-boyfriend, who she caught in bed with another woman.
Whoops.
And she killed him. And,
like you do.
Yeah, like you do. And now what happens is she and her bandmates, every time that there's a concert, she lures young men backstage and cuts off their ring fingers using her guitar strings. So
oh my God.
The whole kind of backstory of this band, right? But the cool thing is it's not just like, this is the icon for the haunt. Here's like a small little scare zone featuring this. So what they do is they had an entire haunted attraction based on them. And the whole point of the haunted attraction was you were going to their concert. You go backstage and, you know, it had a very kind of Club Blood feeling to it. But, you know, they had, lookalikes of the band, in the maze. So it was really cool because the girls that they got looked a lot like the lead singer of the band. And that's the other cool thing, is they didn't just say there was a rock band. They actually had a real punk band that they put together. And the girl that played the lead singer, her name was Sylvie. Mm-hmm. She's from Orange County, right here in California. And they found her somehow. She was in a band out here in California, and they flew her out to Orlando or Tampa, and she did the entire gig as a lead singer. And in the Scare Zone, My Ex band that they created actually performed, and they had an entire set where they wrote songs for the band, and they were all the lyrics to the songs kind of went with the theme of the entire show.
What a great idea.
Yeah. And it's just a cool thing. So, just a really, I don't know. It's just neat that the whole thing kind of permeates throughout the attraction and throughout the park, and you see little bits. So how they do that is they had the Scare Zone where she was performing, you know, so it was like a punk scene kind of a thing. Then they had another Scare Zone with werewolves, and the whole idea was this band of groupies was driving through the forest to get to the concert, and the van broke down and they were attacked by werewolves. And so there's like little hints of the theme throughout all the rest of the park, which is really, really cool.
What a great idea. What a fun way to apply the Aristotelian unities.
Yeah.
I've never seen that done at a theme park before.
Yeah, it's really neat. And they do that every year. So last year, I think, was called Unearthed. And it was about this house that was supposedly buried on the property, and they dug it out. And crazy things were supposed to have happened. And that's why they buried the house in the first place.
The whole house was buried?
Yeah, the whole house was buried. So, and they actually, when they built the haunt, it was down in a pit. So you went down into a pit, and then you went into a house. Wow. And once they opened the house up, it released stuff into the park. And so it'd be really cool if Knott's did something like that. I know it'd be hard to theme that around Ghost Town, but, you know, they have, at Tampa, they do have scare zones that don't necessarily mesh exactly with the thing, but they put enough stuff throughout the park that it kind of matches. And it'd be cool if they took, you know, the boardwalk and like Camp Snoopy and maybe like where the swamp used to be on that backside, and use that to kind of create an overall theme for the attraction. I mean, they kind of did it with the witch and the tricksters, but not to the same level that they do at Busch Gardens.
Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Do you remember any of the individual mazes or attractions that you saw?
Yeah. So the other cool thing is they do, Knott's has done this rarely on occasion, but they do sequel mazes. So they'll put a maze in one year. The next year, the maze doesn't just come back as that maze. It ends up being a sequel. And they even kind of tweak the name a little bit, and they'll redo the interior scenes and stuff. Some of it will be the same, but, you know, they update different parts of it.
Like the C3, the variations on the carnivorous clowns.
Yeah.
Out there on the boardwalk.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So one of the sequels was Nightshade Toy Factory, which the first year was Nightshade Toy Factory, and then the second one was Nightshade Toy Factory, Son of Nightshade. So it's just the son of the serial killer living on in his dad's name and continuing to turn people into toys. It was very much like Toy Factory at Scary Farm.
Doll Factory?
Doll Factory.
Okay.
Yeah, Doll Factory. Same idea.
All right.
Then they had Delta Epsilon Delta Extreme Rush, which was like you were rushing at a sorority.
Mm-hmm.
That's the girls, right?
Yeah, I think so. They tell me.
Yeah. Yes. And that's actually into the theme. The main character from the band, Sylvie, is rushing in the sorority, and you're joining her on this crazy trip through this sorority house.
That's a haunted house in itself, I think.
Yeah.
Just any sorority.
Just the crazy sorority life.
Again, I have no idea.
And then they had Trapped in the Walls, Ghost Tracers, which is like you were joined a paranormal research team and went into a house to exorcise demons that were hiding in the walls. And this one was really well done because they found interesting ways to make demons pop out of walls.
Do you remember any of the gags?
One of them is they had like it was a hallway, and it looked like it had the bottom was like what is it called? The wood? You know what
like
I'm talking about?
Like the wainscoting?
Yeah, the wainscoting. And then the top was wallpaper.
Uh-huh.
But it was actually like rubber. So the demons inside could push their hands and face into it and like lean towards you. And you just see the impressions of them and like they're coming out of the wall. Really cool.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
Really, really cool. Then they had Taste of Blood, a different vein, which was a vampire house. Which,
shocking.
You know, if you've been in a vampire house, you know what they're all about. And then they had Deconstruction, The Doctor is Out of Control, which is actually a sequel to the year before where it was called Reconstruction.
Like plastic surgery gone awry kind of stuff? Okay.
Yeah, so it was all like plastic surgery turning people into like weird mutants and things like that.
That ties in a weird way into the doll kind of thing. Like turning one thing into another thing. They
were very similar, which I thought was interesting that they did that. Like, they were two very similar mazes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Nightshade one was the older one, and I believe this was the last year for it. So they may have just like, as a fan service kind of thing, because it was a really popular maze with the fans, left it, and then added the new one, which kind of did the same thing, but would go on for a few more years. Trying to think of what else was cool. They have a show called, I believe it's called Fiends. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, so they have a show called Fiends, and if you're into scantily clad men and women dancing around, that's basically all it is. And the interesting thing is we did the kind of like their pre-scare dinner. It's a buffet, and where they set it up is the theater where they do Fiends. So you're basically forced to watch it while you eat.
You're watching naked people while you're eating.
Yeah, so last I heard they do still do this. So if you have younger kids and you want to do the pre-scare meal, just, be aware, or maybe plan your meal time when the show isn't going on.
Yeah, that's
because they have like hour slots or whatever.
Giggity.
I had to pick the earliest one, which happened to be when they did the Fiend show, because I had a really early time slot to do the Alone attraction. So I had to pick that. Otherwise I'd miss my appointment at the Alone maze.
Have a banana hammock with your salad.
Yeah. It's close to like what Elvira is, just not as good.
Kind of like a review.
Yeah.
Just a song and dance.
A bunch of pop music turned techno dubby, and people dancing.
Were they any good?
Yeah, not really.
Oh, all right.
People love the show though. There's a large fan base of, we'll say, women over the age of 30 that extremely enjoy the show.
I'll bet.
Extremely enjoy it.
Like Magic Mike
kind
of following?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
There were a few there that were getting quite loud when certain dancers would come on stage.
They had groupies.
Yeah.
See, that's the life.
But that was the cool thing too, was the band ended up, like, the songs were really good. And I'm pretty sure you could probably find them on YouTube or something, because I think they released the album. You could buy it.
That's cool.
They ended up with groupies that would, they had the annual pass program, so people would come back every night just to watch them perform.
Oh, of course.
And then they'd hang out in the park waiting for the next set, because they did like 3 or 4 sets a night, and each one they did different songs.
So did anything ever come of that group? Like, did they ever make any music outside of the event?
No, it was just the IP owned by Tampa, by Howl-O-Scream, and they just put the band together to do the show, and then that's it. I don't know what happened to the girl that played Sylvie, because I know she was in a band prior. So maybe she got some notoriety from it, and maybe her band, did some stuff. But I don't know.
I don't know.
I have to research that.
I wonder if any of our fans would know.
Maybe.
That'd be a fun info call. If anybody knows what happened to that gal, let us know. I think that'd be a really fun...
Yeah, and I'll try to find a video of maybe their performance at one of their performances, and we'll put it on the show notes.
I'd love to see it. That sounds really cool.
Yeah. They were really good. I watched one show, and I was pretty impressed. You could tell that everybody they picked was well rehearsed in performing. So it was a good band.
I like watching bands that are created, that are handpicked, that they didn't organically form. They were like, you play the drums, you play the bass, and it comes together, and it actually jives into a really cool band.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of serendipitous how that works. Because, I mean, it just seems so hard to manufacture that organic kind of feel.
Mm-hmm.
But if they were able to pull that off, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool.
So, are you going to talk about the Alone maze, or are you going to save that as like the Fiesta Resistance?
No, we could talk about it.
I want to hear about it. Okay.
I don't know if anybody's really talked about this maze. I know there were some write-ups you can find online that were like spoiler free, and then I think there's maybe a couple spoiler ones.
Does it still operate?
No, they only did it for 2 years.
Okay, so you can talk about it and like spoiler all over the place, because like it's not going to kill it for anyone, right?
Yeah, because they did something different the 3rd year, and then I think they just stopped doing it.
You said this was 2010?
Yeah, so 2010 and 2011 they did the Alone maze.
Okay.
And in 2012 they did a different thing.
And funny enough, 2011 or 2012 was when Knott's had their
Trapped maze. Yeah.
Odd coincidence.
Well, it was the catalyst that finally let Knott's do the trap maze. Because I know that Daniel Miller, for a long time, was pushing it for several years.
Mm-hmm.
And then Busch Gardens did it. And I think that's kind of what proved to Cedar Fair that it could be viable.
So was the concern that it just wasn't enough people going through per hour? Like
they didn't think that people would want to pay the admission price and then pay an additional $40 to do another maze. So not Cedar Fair, you know, they didn't want to spend a ton of money into this and then have nobody go like, I'm not going to pay another $40.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's a really good point.
It's expensive.
Yeah.
You know, and the
and
one,
it's not like you can share the cost.
Yeah. The Alone maze was expensive too. I'm trying to think. I think it was like $50.
That's a lot.
I can remember. So I paid, I want to say $60 to get in and then $40 or $50 to do the Alone maze.
But when you hear about everything that you have to go through and then everything that they do for your experience, it kind of makes sense that they would charge as much as they did.
Yeah, I mean, but paying it kind of hurt because I was like, I don't even know. Like, no one had done something like, no theme park had done this before. They're the first people to do this. And the difference is the Alone maze is designed for you to go 100% alone, whereas Trapped was designed for 4 people.
Oh, and you could split the cost, right? Or was it $40?
No, it was $40 for 4 people, so everybody paid $10, basically. The Alone maze, you went through alone. Mm-hmm. You had the choice of bringing one friend if you wanted to, but you didn't get the prize at the end if 2 people went. And the prize is a really cool t-shirt. Which is cool. I mean, I was planning on buying a t-shirt anyway. Mm-hmm. So the way that I made the money sound okay was I was just like, well, I was going to buy a souvenir t-shirt anyway. So the t-shirt had been like $25, $30. So I'm paying $20 for the maze. I'm getting a $30 t-shirt.
There you go.
But you only get the t-shirt if you make it all the way through and don't chicken out. So you're kind of betting on making it through.
So that alone is really interesting that you have to go all the way through and you can't chicken out. The fact that there's something in there that would make somebody want to chicken out. I mean, that alone would be a draw to some fans to risk that $50 to go in just for the bragging rights of being able to pull through it. Or even just the curiosity to see what do they think will make people tap out.
From what I understand, because I talked to the guy, who was he? I think he was like the talent manager or something after I went through it. And he said they had about a 60% failure rate. Wow.
How far along in the maze did people usually?
I don't know. I didn't ask. It's hard to think of a spot, you know, because, I mean, let's face it, I've been doing haunts forever, so I kind of know. So for me, it was more about the experience and all the neat things that they did inside and really enjoying the acting and stuff because they had amazing actors. Yeah, but it's hard for me to point out a spot where someone would always just be like, I'm done. I can't do it.
Have you ever been through 17th Door?
No.
Have you heard about the stuff inside?
Yes.
Is there any comparison to, like, I know that one's designed where you can tap out if you have to. Mm-hmm. Was there anything in common between those two events?
No.
So different gags, different
theirs
situations.
Is like, kind of like mini, I don't want to say torture, but many things that you have to withstand for a certain amount of time before you can move on. Mm-hmm. The Alone maze was very theatrical. And, let's just start all the way back at the beginning. So, at home, when I bought the tickets, you clicked on, I want to buy an Alone ticket. And it wasn't as simple as just paying for it. So, after you said I want to buy an Alone ticket, you then had to go through and fill out, I don't even know how many questions, maybe like 60, 70 questions.
Wow.
And they wanted to know all kinds of strange stuff. So just the most random weird stuff. And that kind of was like the first thing where this is something really different. Because why do they need to know all this information? You know, it's all this stuff. And then there's obviously a waiver attached that says like, you know, if anything happens, we're not liable, blah, 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 blah.
Did they say what could happen? Like if you have a heart attack, if you go into a
it
wicked
was all
PTSD
kinds of stuff.
episode?
Yeah, it was all kinds of stuff. Oh, like a whole page of just like stuff.
Like if you had something horrible happen in your childhood and you were triggered, like it's not their fault that you now need 6 weeks of psychotherapy.
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much.
Okay.
All right. So then you fill that out, you get your ticket, everything's cool. So when you show up to, I guess, it's hard. Okay. So Busch Gardens Tampa is like a zoo, basically. It's like a zoo meets Six Flags Magic Mountain. So it's all this jungle and they have amazing theming. And then they have lots of cool roller coasters, which we went to the park during the day too. It's absolutely amazing, but it is gigantic. Mm-hmm. The park is huge. So you're exhausted by the end of the day walking around that place. But the Alone Maze took place. It was just like this nondescript gate area. Like it's like a fence that looks like you're just going into Jurassic Park or something, you know, and there's like a little door into the gate and you couldn't see anything because it was just all jungle. And so you show up and right in front of the door at the gate was somebody that would sign you in. Mm-hmm. And you basically have to sign your name in. And then, the thing is they know everything about you. So they know when you check in and then they call into the thing. And the storyline is basically like this, explorer guy named Alexander Daedalus. He's like a collector of artifacts. So he goes all around the world collecting these weird, like occult artifacts and just random things.
Like Indiana Jones?
Yeah. And so all you know is you get like a letter, kinda, inviting you to tour his facility where he holds all of these artifacts. So that's all you know about going in, is that you're going to take a tour of this place where he holds all his artifacts. So you're thinking like a museum or something like that.
The first thing I pictured was Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, when he goes into the room with all of the heads mounted on the wall. For some reason, I know that's not artifacts, but that's what I thought of. Anyway, continue.
So they sign you in, they call ahead to the guy and ask if he's ready for you to take your tour. And then without any instruction, when it's time to go, they just point you towards the door and you're on your own. At that point, you are on your own. No one is going to help you. No one's going to tell you what to do. And you are there's a dark path, completely not lit. So you're going through the jungle in the dark. There's like a dirt path that just goes through the bushes. And you're just walking down this dark ass path. And as soon as you step onto it, you realize how dark it is because, you know, they have like the special effect lighting and stuff in like the scare zone. But once you cross that gate, it's just dark. And that's when you kind of start thinking like, all right, this is kind of scary.
Yeah, because like, what if you walk into some animal's paddock?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, I know that the tigers are kind of over here somewhere. I'm like, are they just like letting me into like the tigers? And like,
you just like, I envision a raptor just like waiting.
That's exactly what's going through your head. So you're walking down this path and you're like, at any second, a gorilla or a tiger or an elephant can come stampeding through this way.
A poisonous snake that's not even supposed to be there.
Yeah, you don't know. Okay. So you walk this path and it actually ended up not being terribly long, but it felt like a mile.
I'll bet.
And nothing happened, which made it even worse. Like it was literally like all build up and nothing. And then you end up coming up to this warehouse, big warehouse. And I don't know what it's used for during normal operation, but it's, you know, you just pop out. It's like, in Jurassic Park when they've got to turn the energy on and they're going down that path and the raptors are chasing them and then all of a sudden there's just like a building.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. And then in front of the building is just a table with a chair and a tape recorder on it. And so you just sit down and you hit play on the recorder, and it's the explorer guy basically welcoming you to his factory where he collects all these artifacts, and you get to tour it. And he basically tells you, like, don't touch anything, because they're all priceless artifacts. Mm-hmm. And then the door opens.
Wait, question.
Yeah.
Is the recording personalized?
It was personalized. So they took that information, like, basically they know who you are. So, yeah. So it's like, they have your name and everything. So each one was personalized. As far as I know, each one was personalized. I don't know I think I went like the first night or the first weekend. I could see that getting really crazy to do every single night, because I don't know how many people they did. But yeah, I do remember it being personalized. And so it was like, hi, Casey, welcome to my thing, you know. It was really cool.
That is so cool.
And that was the whole point of this, was just to make an attraction that was very personalized.
Yeah.
So that's why they needed all that information from you, just to be able to make it, you know, as personal to you as possible. And they use all that information inside. So once the door opens, you go inside, and there's like a couple little hallways, not much goes on, and you get to an elevator, and the elevator door opens, and there's a bellhop kind of looking guy, but his eyes have been gouged out, so he just has like black holes where his eyes were, and they had really good makeup, and he looked kind of like the Tower of Terror style outfit on. And then so you go down the elevator, which is like not a real elevator, but it was a really cool fake elevator, better than most you see at haunted attractions.
Cool.
And then when you get out of the elevator, you went out a different door.
Do you ever find out why the guy's eyes are gouged out?
No.
It's just this is my job now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But what ends up becoming clear as you go through is he doesn't just collect artifacts, he collects people. And that's why you're there. He's brought you there to collect you. And so you're supposed to eventually be part of his collection.
That means you're special.
Yeah. Aww. So everybody who goes through is special.
Oh, little snowflake.
So the next, they had this really cool effect, which I've always wanted to duplicate in an haunted attraction because it's so cool. But it's definitely something that had to do with really small groups or single people. They had a stretching hallway. So, like, the hallway, it started out, let's say it's 10 feet long, right? And there's a door at the end that you're supposed to go through. And the bellhop just tells you, like, go through that door. As you start walking towards it, the door starts moving away from you at the exact same pace that you're walking. So the door ends up stretching to, say, like 30 feet long. And then so you're, like, going and the door keeps moving away from you. And then when it finally, you start catching up to it, a character, like, bursts through the door and scares the shit out of you. And then that's when you actually get into the warehouse proper.
Okay.
And this is a big, like I said, it's a pretty big warehouse. I can't even, maybe 20 feet high ceiling. Like big. It's pretty big. And it was like floor to ceiling shelves that you're walking through, and they are just filled with props.
Oh, that's so
and
cool.
Some of the props are alive, which is really cool. And stuff that you wouldn't even notice, you know? So it's not like a suit of armor, because that'd be obvious, right? But next to the suit of armor, maybe there's something totally innocuous, and that's the thing that would scare you. So they were doing really cool stuff, like putting kind of things that are like, oh, that's going to be a person, but it's not, and the thing is actually on the other side, and it's something totally stupid, you know?
What kind of things were alive?
I can't remember. It was so long ago. But there was like, I do remember something like that, like a suit of armor on one side, and then the scare actually came from the other side, and it was just like an actor that was puppeteering something, that didn't look like it could move, kind of a thing. But they did a lot of stuff like that. So you're like going through these things.
But you can do that when there's only one guest.
Yeah, and the whole time you're going through, you're kind of being guided. So, like, the character that came through the door and scared you brings you through a certain portion, is having a dialogue with you the entire time. And that character's dialogue is all personalized to you. So, everything that she's talking about, or maybe even things that she might say that would scare you, is all information that they got off of the thing that you filled out. So if you said that I really hate spiders, they may infer that there's a lot of spiders around, so watch out when you're going around the corners or whatever, because there might be a spider web or something. Like, they'll do things like that, you know, just because they know what you're scared of, they know what makes you laugh, they know, and so they play off of everything that they know about you.
That's just cruel.
And how those characters, I mean, hats off to the actors, because they had to adapt their, you know, I'm sure they had like a base story that they had to explain, like some kind of base script, but then they basically had to ad-lib stuff for every single person that went through. They had to change a little bit, which is just mind-blowing how they could do that.
That's brilliant.
And it was so well done, you know.
Like, each one of them is like back in their own little corner looking at the piece of paper that's relative to you, going, okay, this is this guy, he's afraid of spiders, he, you know, I don't know, lost his dog when he was 6, and, you know.
Yeah.
Is creeped out by old men. You know, whatever the list of things is, that they get to actually put those into their story.
Add it into the story somehow.
That is so great. What a neat opportunity to flex new muscles as an actor.
Yeah, it's a lot of improv.
But at the same time, you're bound by some pretty strict rules. You have to tell the story. Yeah, because there is a
real story going along, and the story builds as it goes, so that there's a lot of plot points that they have to hit and make you understand on top of all the other things that they're talking about.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool.
I'm trying to remember all the stuff that happened. So you went through that section, and then there was this other really cool gag eventually where you basically, I think it was the first person you met leaves you. She sends you through a door, and there's just a hallway that goes down. There's another door, and she just tells you, go through that door and to continue. So you're like, okay. So she slams the door behind you. You walk over to the other door, which is like a 20-foot long hallway maybe. And you open it, and there's just a brick wall behind it. And once I saw that, I just knew I was fucked, because I was like, there's somebody behind me.
Yeah.
You know, like right away, you're just like, there's somebody behind me. And sure enough, you turn around, there's somebody behind you, and they tell you, what the hell are you doing in here? Go back the other way. So you go back out the other door, only this time you open it and you're in a completely different place.
Brilliant. Which
is like, it's so well done. You know, it's just like one of those pie rooms that slide over.
Yeah.
But the setup and the gag was so well done that
Did you
it was
even
seamless.
know?
I didn't even know. And that's something that I was looking for going through. Like, I wanted to really check out the gags. And it was so seamless and so well done that I didn't even notice it. Oh. Like, I was actually surprised when it opened to another place, because I didn't expect it at all.
Wow.
And usually you can tell.
Yeah.
But they must have had the timing down so well that they made sure you're far enough down the hallway that when they slid it, you didn't notice the pivot. You know, they had to have it down really well. I don't know how many backstage hands maybe they had. They had to have a ton.
I have to imagine there's just, it's like, crawling with people.
There's probably more backstage hands than there were talent in the maze, I would think.
Oh yeah, I imagine like, kind of like they're puppeteering the whole maze.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like 4 or 5 stage hands to every actor that you see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy. And then he went through a section with a bunch of crazy people. It was really dark. I don't remember a whole lot about it.
Crazy people?
Yeah, they were like other people that had been collected.
Oh.
But they were a little insane from being in there for so long.
Well, sure.
And they were in the dark. Like, it was really, really dark. And it was like those slatted walls, so they could like talk to you through the walls, and then you like go in and out of the rooms and stuff.
So that's where they're kept?
Yeah. They're like, because they're bad people or something. And so they're being punished. So that's where they're kind of like in the hole.
Oh.
You know.
Okay.
And then eventually you meet the explorer's, in quotations, favorite collection. And it's this absolutely insane girl. She played the part so well. Like, just off her rocker insane. And she was in this room with the explorer's favorite possession. And it was like this vase that looked like it was from like ancient Greece, and it was like really awesome looking. And how they pulled this gag off, I'll never understand. Because so what happens, I have to tell you what happens, and I'll tell you why I can't understand it. She's talking to you and she's telling you how precious this priceless artifact is and all this stuff. And it has, it's like the Minotaur's maze, right? So they have like a picture of the Minotaur, and it has like all these cool maze designs on it. It looks really old. And she picks it up, and then she's like, do you want to touch it? Have you ever touched something that's priceless? You know? And then you're just like, no, I don't want to touch it. And she's like, touch it. You're like, no, I don't want to touch it. She's like, touch it. Like, she starts yelling and screaming at you.
Well, the guy said not to touch anything.
Yeah. So that's why you're like, I don't want to touch anything. And so she's like screaming at the top of her lungs at you to touch it. And then finally you're just like, fine, I'll touch it. And then you like go to touch it, and she shatters it on the ground. Now,
oh my gosh.
I don't know how they reset that. I can't assume that they have, like 1,000 of these vases backstage and they just replace it.
Why not?
Like,
how big was it?
It was a big vase. Like, it was amazingly weathered and beautiful. Like, I cannot imagine they had a different vase for every single guest that went through.
Maybe
like,
it's a different artifact each time.
Maybe, but the artifact makes sense to the finale. So that's why I think that it's real. Like,
well, that $50 had to go somewhere.
They probably lost money then if that's the case, because just the time and effort that went into making just one of those, I can't even think. Like, my only thought is it must go back together somehow. But it's completely seamless. Like, when you see it, it looks like a perfect like a perfect, vase. Though my only thought is maybe like how I said I had the Minotaur maze, like the black lines. Mm-hmm. Maybe those black lines hid the seams, and it just like pops back together somehow.
Did you notice what it looked like when it hit the ground?
It looked shattered. It looked like a vase broke.
In like big chunks, or like little chunks and big chunks, or
all of it? Like, it just looked like someone shattered a vase. I don't know.
What was the lighting like in there?
It wasn't that dark, but you just come from like a really dark room, so your eyes were well adjusted.
Because I'm wondering if it really would take that long to make a streamline a whole bunch of those vases. And
I don't know.
It reminds me of, I went to a Lutheran high school. And, we had some speakers in our theology class where part of their story was they took cups and would throw it onto the ground. And they had like however many periods are in the day. So I think there was 8. They had 8 different cups. Yeah. And it was the same thing, that just they had 8 cups. But then they also had 8 other cups that were glued together. So, I mean, this is not necessarily connected. It just reminded me of that. But they made 8 different ones. And that wasn't even, they didn't have to decorate them or anything. But knowing the amount of work that goes into props and things like that at a haunted attraction, and something like this, which is a world first, and it's personalized, and it's obviously something that's very special in the industry, it doesn't seem too far-fetched to me that they would actually make a unique vase, a unique prop to be destroyed for every person that goes in.
In that case, that's the prop I would have wanted if I made it all the way through.
You would have wanted
I would have taken
the vase?
that over the shirt.
Oh, hell yeah. That would look great up next to your idol.
Yeah.
You should make one.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Let's make one.
So moving on from there.
Crazy lady drops the vase. Then what
I
happens?
don't remember a whole lot because then two really big dudes come in. And they manhandle you out of the room. And so basically they're taking you to meet the explorer guy because you broke the rules and touched a vase. Even though you never actually touched it, she blamed you.
So you go to touch it and she drops it before you can touch it?
Yeah.
So according to them, you touched it and broke it.
Yeah, well, because she says you broke it. She blames you. And then you're...
nut bar. Okay.
Yeah. It's
That's
a wacky,
brilliant.
wacky maze. It's totally wacky.
Okay.
So eventually you're forced to sit on this bench and I can't remember if you're chained down or I think there is some kind of
Like restraint?
restraint. I can't remember what it is. But then the explorer guy comes in and he's like up on like a judge's podium sort of a thing. He's looking down on you and he tells you what an asshole you are. He invited you here out of the goodness of his heart and you broke his precious vase. And now you have to meet the protector, which is the Minotaur. And
Okay.
a dude comes out, massive dude. Like, the guy had to be over 6 feet tall, and then on top of that, he had the Minotaur's head on, so it was like 8 feet tall guy, maybe
Wow.
more. And just like ripped, dude. He was like bodybuilder status. And I don't know, it's obviously some sort of mask or like propped head, like a prop head. But it was so well integrated because he had like chest hair that looked like it was like prosthetically glued on that like kind of faded out to like his normal chest.
Whoa.
So it just like seamlessly fit in like really well. And the Minotaur comes out and chases you out of the building. Now, when I did it, you had to get down on all fours and beg for forgiveness. And then you had to crawl out through like a ventilation shaft.
Ooh.
Kind of a thing.
Okay.
And then eventually you're like crawling through this tunnel, which felt like forever. And then you pop out in the jungle. And then there's another path that leads back out to where you came in.
So you escape?
Yeah. So you end up escaping. I know the next year, because our friend Ted went, he said the same, he said it was close to the same experience that I had, like a few little tweaks. But at the very end, instead of crawling through the tunnel, they had you go into like this dark area, like a dark hole basically. Mm-hmm. And it ended up being a slide and you ended up sliding out of the building.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. But that was like the major difference between the 2 years. But yeah, overall, it was an amazing, I'm glad I spent the money to do it.
How long did it take you to go through?
It ends up being about a 45-minute experience.
That's a good long time.
Yeah, definitely worth the money that was spent to do it. You're in there a long time.
So there's nothing in there, like, through the experience that you had, what do you think would have made people, like, can you imagine what would have made someone tap out?
Maybe the crazy girl. She was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not knowing if you were supposed to touch the thing or resist. Just be like, I give up.
Yeah, I think some people would just find that pretty intense and then not wanting to touch it. Maybe they would just give up instead of touching it. But yeah, that's the alone experience.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So you made it out alive. You go back out. Do you go when you exit, or are you back where you started, or are you in a different place?
You go back out the same way you started.
Okay. And then they just said, congratulations, here's a t-shirt?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that was it.
Well, congratulations.
I know. It
That's
was
pretty
awesome.
cool.
I'm glad I did it. I wish I would have done Trapped, but after reviews of the first year, I knew there was just some things that I don't find interesting in a haunted attraction.
Like eating bugs?
Yeah, like eating bugs, being forced to drink disgusting things. Like, to me, that's more...
That doesn't
It's more of a gross out than a scary thing.
Yeah, that doesn't seem very haunted housey to me. That's more like I dare you.
Which is the same thing with 17th Door, which is why I haven't done that yet. Because to me, it's more, how far can we push you in an uncomfortable, I don't know, it's just not a haunted house, I guess, to me.
I think that people have different definitions of what they find fun and thrilling. And it's okay if fun and thrilling for you is that kind of thing.
Yep.
It's not mine.
Not mine.
But it doesn't mean that it's bad or wrong.
Yeah.
Or that we're bad or wrong. It's just not for us. That's all.
Yep. I would like to see Knott's take on something much more akin to what they did with Alone. Because I think Knott's could do something really cool.
And they've proven that they can do the upcharge.
But much more theatrical, kind of an attraction.
From what I understand right now, it's a battle between the old school and the new school. There are some who recognize potential in venues and approaches to execution, and there are some that are still, this is what has worked. It's going to work in the future. Let's continue to do it this way. And from what I've heard, it's a bit of a struggle back and forth trying to get new ideas greenlit for, for debut into the park. So it would be great, but
I think there's room for both. I loved Red Barn, which is very old school, huh?
It was very contained, and not to go into a haunt review again, but yeah, that was a really well buttoned up type of maze. It's just like you go in, here's the theme, some scary stuff happens, and then you leave. It's but at the same time, I feel like, and that was, Red Barn was its first year, right?
Yeah.
2016. But then you look at Infected, which is a 180 from the typical thing that you go in and here's your theme and you're kind of a passive observer. Or that one, you're thrown headlong into the fray and pretty, you're not responsible for your own fate, but it's made to kind of seem like you are, like you have a control over the outcome. And that's a completely different and new thing. So, the fact that even happened is a good sign. Maybe they're open to some new and fun experiences. It's not like they're strangers to doing things that are new. Like they did have the, what's it called? Trapped. They had that experience. They had, as brief as it was, the VR experience, which I hope that they can do something with again.
Well, I guess that's something we can add to the show. News. They're putting in the untethered VR experience in Knott's this summer.
For what's the attraction?
They haven't said. There was a leak. I heard... Who was it that leaked it by accident? Oh, it was during their Cedar Fair financial call. They do to their investors. You can dial in if you have stock in Cedar Fair.
Sure.
And they talk about how awesome their parks are and to buy more stock and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
One of the things that they promoted was the VR experience coming to Knott's, and it was called something like Ghost Town VR or something. So it'd be interesting to find out what it is. I'm going to pay for it to try it out.
Oh, absolutely.
It's an upcharge whenever they roll it out. But
I feel like we owe it to the podcast.
I don't know if it's going to be a contained thing like their laser tag thing was.
Yeah.
Or if you're just going to be let loose into Ghost Town Park, like the part of Ghost Town.
That seems dangerous.
VR goggles with other guests running around. I don't know. We'll find out. Untethered, yeah. So you'll be able to walk around and explore.
But you have to be connected in some way to get the content.
No, it's all wireless.
But still connected wirelessly.
Yeah.
So like, how connected could you be walking around the entire span of Ghost Town? I mean, would they have...
They'd have to have little RF microwave transmitters that transmit the data for the video feed.
Yeah.
Like set up on the roofs or something all over.
And be quite an infrastructure to build just for that.
But what I've seen done in the past before is they have basically like a big room, like let's say one of the warehouses they use for a scary farm.
Mm-hmm.
And they build out walls and everything, so it kind of looks like a maze they go through for Scary Farm. And then they take that information of where all the walls are and they map it into the VR experience.
Mm-hmm.
So as you're going through, it may just be a blank black wall in real life, but in VR, you're seeing like a textured environment.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what they've been working on in their overnights.
Maybe.
Ooh, I hope so. That'd be a really cool thing.
Yeah, it'll be really cool to find out what it's all about.
But it's VR. That means that a huge chunk of their audience can't experience it. Because you would have to be 12 or what's the age they recommend for VR?
The recommended age is 13 and up.
I mean, it's kind of a bummer that,
But it depends. Well, I know Six Flags, when they had the VR, I don't know if they still have it on Revolution, but all the Six Flags parks, they did VR roller coaster experiences, and put a 13 and over age requirement.
So you just don't wear the headset or whatever. I guess that's a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of grown-ups who are going to think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there is an audience, but it's too bad that they can't do something like that for the youngsters.
They do. They have laser tag.
I didn't know Knott's had laser tag.
Yeah,
Where?
It was under where Iron Reef is. Part of the arcade was turned into a laser tag arena.
Was it like that when we went last?
I don't know if it's still there.
Oh.
They might have taken it out, but it was there from maybe 99 to 2015, 14.
Lord. I never go in the arcade though. There's no need to go.
But it was on the outside. Like the queue line was under where the dinosaur queue line was on the lower level.
It sounds really familiar.
Yeah.
But I never went in there or went by there.
Well, anything else going on?
I'm working on a project. I don't know if I talked about it last time.
We did.
I think I did a little bit. So that project I don't think that's even been announced. I think that's still in its baby stages as well. Yeah. But I've been putting a lot of effort into getting that ready. And I am super excited for it. I cannot wait for this thing to be able to finally talk about it because it's going to be really, really cool. But it's right up my alley. If you've heard the podcast from the beginning, you can kind of guess maybe what my involvement will be.
Maybe.
I can give a hint. It has nothing to do with sliding.
That's
That's
true.
A pretty good hint. So I'm involved heavily and it has nothing to do with sliding. So chew on that and try to figure out what it is. But I am very, very excited about it. And I think it's going to open a lot of doors for all parties involved for this upcoming project. And it's going to be pretty sweet. Huntington Haunt is still just kind of cruising. Not much really to report on that front.
No,
we got the plans approved.
The powers that be that control all such things had to have a meeting. So I don't know if it happened or if they had to reschedule or whatnot. But I haven't heard anything about what happened at that meeting.
So probably not.
Yeah.
Because they would have told you.
Usually I would have found out pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's just a long process when you deal with a lot of different entities.
Yeah, especially when it has to do with finances.
Yeah.
Everybody has a say. But we bought a couple of props. I think we did talk about that last time where we went over to Sinister Point's awesome epic sale that they have every now and then.
Yeah.
We got some good stuff that I really want to decorate our house with, but I can't because, they kind of belong to whatever. Anything else?
I think that's it. I think we're good.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, look at us.
Look at us. being all on top of things.
I know.
Cool beans. Well,
Hi.
Since I never remember what our social media outlets are, why don't you handle that part?
You can follow us on Instagram at Tales from the Fog. You can follow us on Facebook at Tales from the Fog. You can follow me on YouTube. You can just search for Casey Neihart. You can follow Veronica on Instagram at V's Voices.
Veronica Voices.
Veronica Voices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's it. You can follow so I don't know if it's launched yet, but the Decay Brigade's going to have a new Facebook page. The one that's currently on there, no one's ever posted on it, and no one knows who has the information to log into it.
It's a ghost. It exists, and no one knows where it came from or who has the credentials to access it.
Be looking for us to be promoting the new Decay Brigade Facebook page. We're going to be starting, myself and Double D are going to be in charge of the YouTube page once we get that up. I have to talk to him for that because we have a lot of cool stuff for that. So that's all coming. Be looking for that. Other than that, our blog is at talesfromthefog.weebly.com. But we're going to post the show notes and everything on the blog. And if you follow us on Facebook, the link to the blog will be the link that goes up for this episode. So just look for that. We always pin the newest episode to the top of the Facebook page. So it'll be the first thing you see. And I think that's it.
Cool.
So, yeah, have a good night, everybody. And until next time, we'll see you in the fog.
Bye, guys.
Bye.